Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first Music Society lunchtime concert of the second semester. Before we start, I'm probably roughly obliged just to say that today, well, this semester is the 150th anniversary of the Music Society. For most of those years, we have been doing lunchtime concerts, so do the maths there. The tickets for our 150th anniversary festival are going on sale tonight at 5:30. And if you scan the QR code on the desk on your way out, you can sign up to the wait list or just keep that tab open and go and buy yours later. So please do that. But in other exciting news, this first lunchtime concert is a collaboration with the Music Centre, featuring 5 brand new pieces that have never been heard before. I have no idea what any of them are, by composition interns who have been working, scholarship holders, there we go, who've been working with our Honorary Professor of Composition, Piers, Hellawell. These will be performed by scholarship musicians, as well as our Deputy Director of Music, Bede Williams. But anyway, enough of me. Please welcome to the stage, Piers, Hellawell.
Thank you so much. It doesn't look 150. Anyway, it's wonderful to see such an amazing crowd here. That's so great. Thank you for coming. This is a kind of special, a first of its kind, I think, for us. So my role as a visiting composition professor is to get people writing, obviously, in, broadly speaking, classical music, art music, media, because that's all I know about. And we have, in the autumn, tried to put together some teams of composers, because the store of performers is so wonderful here at St Andrews. It wasn't really very difficult to find very intrepid performers who would come forward and join up with our composers. So you're going to hear 3 of these team collaborations supported by the research internship, and you're also going to hear 2 collaborations of students with Bede Williams. They were lucky enough to get to work with a really top professional trumpet player, and those make up the program. So there are 5 pieces, 3 student collaborations and 2 student with Bede collaborations, as it were. So I'm going to introduce them, but I'm also going to invite each composer to say a little beforehand, because I think we all really wonder what goes on in collaborations. I mean, some composers just write stuff and send it, and it lands on the mat, and the performer's stuck with it. Other composers kind of ask a lot of questions and write things and send them, and we want to find out which these ones are. So our first performer I shall introduce first is Harriet Pybus. So please give her a warm welcome. Harriet plays double bass, and our first piece is a double bass solo, and our first composer is Melvin Chan. So please join me, Melvin. So, Melvin, you are widely known already as a pianist, but I think you were once, or maybe still are, a string player as well. Has that been a help? You don't play double bass.
Yeah, I think that's true for some extent, but not. Yes, for playing violin, it does help a little bit, but considering the size, of course, you have the small string instruments and these large, huge instruments. And when I think about some ideas, I have to really think about the register of the bass. You imagine in violin, even in very high notes, you can play very fast with agility, but I realized in the bass it couldn't really do. But on the other hand, I think bowings of the violin, learning that helps. You know, down bow and up bow, and then the connection of the bows. You have light and heavy sound, and the sonority is a bit similar.
Yeah, indeed. Now, your piece seems to me extraordinarily idiomatic for the bass, which is not to say that it's easy for the bass. I mean, it's a virtuoso workout, I think. It's a real contribution to the repertoire. So did you write it and then say to Harriet, well, here it is, or did you kind of have a tutorial with her first and then gradually work collaboratively?
I actually had a meeting before writing anything at all, and I basically got a book with me and asked Harriet to demonstrate some perhaps extended techniques or just play something random from her repertoire and some crazy pizzicato techniques or whatever, and I would like mix the ideas and then combine them into my piece, and then refine it after some rehearsals.
And is there a particular significance to the title, Veiled Speech?
Yeah, of course. Veiled means covered by something, which I get the idea from the sonority of the double bass, of especially you hear it at the very beginning, the low E. I use the open strings, which really captures the dark sonority, and of course the double bass clearly demonstrates. The speech item is more of an improvisatory aspect of the piece. You have you listen to it, especially in the end, you will just fade out into nothing.
Indeed, thank you. Well, I was going to ask Harriet one question, which is the piece difficult? But I think you can answer that one probably with a nod. So it is very demanding, but it's also extremely idiomatic. So let's hear Veiled Speech now by Melvin Chan. to Harriet for opening our programme. Incredibly difficult to be the first in an experimental concert like that. That was just thrilling. The other aspect of this project we've been doing since the autumn that I mentioned is to have the chance to collaborate with a professional artist. And so two of our composers chose to work with Bede Williams and produce solo trumpet pieces. And you can imagine the challenges are so different from some of our others. The three instruments in the student collaborations are all what I would call very private instruments: double bass, guitar, and recorder. I mean, not a group that you usually encounter together. And each of them is an instrument which requires you to listen very intently to hear what it's saying. Whereas the trumpet is an instrument that never has any trouble getting listeners. And so it's a huge pleasure to welcome Bede Williams here for the first of our trumpet collaborations. And our composer is Yuangdong, who I think is here, who's going to do join me. Do you play the trumpet?
Not at all.
No. And this would be a first time for you maybe writing a solo instrumental piece, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
What kind of projects have you worked on before for yourself?
For myself, I mainly do like piano compositions, and I also write some like pop songs. But writing for a trumpet solo is definitely the first time I've tried this.
Yeah. And when was the first time that you heard your piece on Bede's trumpet? Was that yesterday or before?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. And we have to ask, how does it compare with what you imagined?
It's a lot better than my expectations. Because when I was composing, the odd sounds were coming out from a MIDI simulation from a computer.
It's better than the MIDI. It's
a lot
fit to
better.
fit.
And I was never quite satisfied with what it sounded when the sound came out from the computer. However, when Bede really played on it, it sounds
The thing that interests me about your piece is that it's quite lyrical, it's quite melodic. The trumpet is often traditionally associated with very rhythmic attack and playing very loudly. Your piece is melodic. Are you a lyrical composer, do you think?
maybe, yeah.
Yeah. And Endless Longing is a romantic title. Yeah. Well, let us hear it now. Many thanks for taking part, Randon, and many thanks, Bede, for being the inspiration for the trumpet piece. So thank you. So our next piece is not for an instrument, but for a family of instruments. We all know from distant memories of trying to learn the recorder, and most of us not getting very far, that there's more than one, more than two, and we've got an absolute phalanx of them for you in the next piece. So can I welcome Maria Michaelis for Cantus Recordārī by Ross Donaldson. So I'm going to have a word with Ross, if I can ask him up. I think almost everybody will know Ross as a very distinguished horn player, but he is also an experienced composer, and he took on a very interesting research assignment, in this case with the collaboration with Maria on the recorder. Ross, could I just ask you how, what was it that you were discovering with this task? I mean, did you anticipate that you would have 4 or 5 instruments to choose from, for example?
Yeah, so I was aware that there were multiple recorders, but I never had kind of any experience with specifically what each type was. So the first kind of part of this project was, I met with Maria a couple of months ago, and the first step was to kind of outline all the different instruments in the family. So I was treated to a very extensive introduction to what each instrument can do, what existing rep might exist, and it became pretty clear that we couldn't just do this for one recorder. We really had to showcase, to do the instrument justice, we had to showcase the entire family. So we went for 5 kind of miniature movements, each of which showcasing the real kind of specialities of each member of the recorder family.
And between you, could you just run through which recorder we hear in which piece?
Yeah, of course. So the very first piece, we have probably the one that you will all recognise, the descant recorder. This is, probably what's in most people's minds when the word recorder is mentioned.
Indeed.
Next, for the second movement, we have the sopranino recorder. It's very small. It's really the most bird-like of them all. It's very chirpy. Next, we move on to the tenor recorder, which we're kind of getting into that kind of more mellow territory. Really nice kind of breath sound.
Yes.
Then briefly we return back to the descant recorder before moving on to, I think,
So that's the 4th movement, is descant again.
moving on to the bass recorder, which this was completely unfamiliar to me when we began, and when I first heard it, I knew we had to do something with it. It's the most like human voice in a way, I think, which is partly where this piece gets its name. It's very rooted in song, whether that be human voice song or bird song.
And I'm right, you mentioned the sort of affinity of small recorders for bird song. You actually use some in one of the pieces, is that right?
Yeah, so the 4th movement is it's a transcription of the song of the, let's see if I can get the pronunciation right, the Kwai-o-o bird. Sorry, that's not correct. Which is unfortunately now extinct, but we do have recordings of the last ever call of this bird. It was actually a 2-part call. One bird calls one, the other bird calls the other. But this recording, since this bird was the last of its species, has very uncomfortable silences in the gaps.
And you'll hear
where
those.
the reply should be. We've come up with some extended techniques to kind of simulate that eerie silence.
When you said we've come up with some extended techniques, is that how it works? So your writing is very exploratory at various points in the recorders, but you didn't sort of imagine these and then land them on Maria. You kind of work collaboratively, is that right?
Yeah, so this was one of the main points of collaboration. So in the first meeting as well, Maria showed me a bunch of the kind of extended techniques that the instrument is capable of. And then I went away, wrote some, came back, realised that it was not feasible recorder writing. So we then expanded, from there to kind of work out what was comfortable and playable on the instrument.
just asking Maria, is this your normal repertoire, or was this a departure for you?
I play a lot of Baroque music. I've dabbled in sort of alternative techniques, but I'm definitely not.
It's a departure, yeah. Well, bravo. Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Ross and Maria. great pleasure to welcome Oumar Sagna to the stage. Let's start with and our proposer is Stewart, who I think is here. Yes, Caleb, come to join us. Caleb, you're a musician of many different kinds of areas, not just the more experimental art music, and I think you recently had an important role in the musical.
Yes.
So, does that tell us anything about your guitar piece? For example, are you a rock guitarist or something?
I play a little bit of guitar, but very little. I make more electronic music, a bit of choral music, and then a bit of piano music.
You're a singer?
Yeah, I sing as well. But it was a lot of fun to write for Oumar, and he's a superb player who also contributed a whole lot to all the writing process. It was a constant back and forth. It was super. It was a pleasure to work with him.
Indeed. I can confirm that. I mean, all our collaborators have been wonderfully constructive and helpful. Tell us about MAORU, is that the title?
Yeah. I was feeling a bit lazy and I needed a title, so it's just an anagram of Oumar's name.
Oh, right. Okay. So this is your piece forever. Fantastic. And I would suggest that it has a contemplative, lyrical kind of feel. Is that right? But correct me if not.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of like looking at a few different types of music, like kind of a mix of somewhat kind of Spanish guitar with also looking at some like minimalist Steve Reich type stuff. Then yeah, the Latin music I was looking at. I'm gonna butcher his name, but Luis Bonfa. It's very kind of lyrical music, and also like his versions. He has like guitar versions of songs with lyrics. So it's kind of
Sure. Well, I think I'm going to say it's a substantial piece with its own style. So congratulations. So thank you very much, MAORU by Caleb Stewart. Thank you. join me, and we welcome again back to the platform Bede Williams. So we have two trumpet pieces, and I'm going to suggest there's a kind of a happy contrast between them because they both take a different approach. So it seems to me that Yuangdong's piece is this wonderful lyrical outpouring with a single kind of reflective mood. Charlie, your piece is more a kind of series of snapshots and contrasts, and I think you, whatever went on with the composition of those, I think you likened those to something to do with our climate around us. It's a winter piece, is that right?
Yeah, it's called Snowscapes because it kind of like describes various scenes that you might find in winter. So, but also contrasts those scenes. So it kind of, you have like a scene of a bright snowy landscape, but then comparing that with being inside, cozy by the fire kind of thing. And trying to get that, especially on like one instrument, trying to get that contrast is quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, talking of contrast, I was going to ask, did you start off thinking of the trumpet more or less as kind of one thing, or were you aware of its diversity? Because you're going to hear quite a few different sounds in this piece.
Yeah, I mean, I did lots of research on it, and I didn't realise the sheer capabilities of the trumpet. Like, so many techniques that I just never heard of, and different mutes as well, which are...
Indeed. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much, Charlie. As this is our last piece, I'm just going to say that this is not the end of our composing year. We're kind of halfway through, we hope. And that our plan is to continue to draw in students to write for a wind duo for clarinet and bass clarinet. So if anybody is interested in that, please speak to the master trumpeter, who also has an administrative role in this. But it's very important to us that compositional activity is going on, and we hope to be able to continue this amazing high standard that we've had today. Thank you to Charlie and to our other composers and to the wonderful performers who collaborated with them. Thank you.
Should have been the least interesting bit of the whole hour. We've got the charity collection bucket out on the desk out there for music and hospitals and care, if you'd like to make a donation on your way out. And yeah, well, thank you very much again to all the performers and to Piers and to the composers and to all of you for coming along.